how do you think that journalists should go about covering public officials who are themselves, the source of the disinformation, just going beyond the president, but I'm thinking of, certain senators, certain congressmen, certain police officials who have a documented sort of pattern of lying or spreading falsehoods. How should journalists go about covering those individuals, especially if that is your beat and you're assigned to cover them? And I'd be interested in hearing maybe sometimes that you've dealt with this in your own work.
But if I can go ahead and answer that, I think we have to constantly challenge every statement that they have to say. I mean, if there is an opportunity to ask, if it's a press conference, then we ask. For instance, if a government official says this is something that we will do because according to the law, this is what supposedly his interpretation of the law says, then we can point out the specific provision and say, sir, I don't think that's what it says, or look at the language of the law. How do you reconcile this with your statements? Or if he has a certain policy recommendation, look at his previous actions, his previous, say, policy decisions, and say, why are you now saying this when a few years ago you were saying this? And again, I guess it's important to remind the viewers and also the readers constantly that there's been a trail of, let's say, flip-flopping, or maybe a record of backtracking on certain statements by this official, and it's just a matter of saying this is what happened. You don't necessarily have to, go against the person. Just say this is what happened before. Here is his policy statement now.
Matthew, I think a critical part of this, and really I do agree with Mike. I don't cover the field, just to be very clear about it anymore. It's been a while since I've been covering the field, but I could see the challenges in covering real time. Okay, but I think this is where you do your homework. You don't go to battle without studying the terrain, right? You actually go to when a journalist covers or does a coverage, you're actually going to battle in a way, because you're covering something. So you need to be very conscious of your context, of the context behind, like what is the current coverage, and then anticipate what might be said. That is very important. In the live debates, for instance, which we did, fact-checking live debates during the 2016 elections, the 2019 elections, one of the things that we did beforehand, before the actual debate, was we put together all of these, we anticipate what will be discussed. We have anticipated what will be discussed, and then put together research that we can use to double check what's being said. And yeah, I agree, that's quite a lot of work, but it's necessary. Journalists cannot be going to a coverage without refreshing, without knowing what the laws are, like as Mike was saying, because if this law will be discussed, or this topic, this issue is going to be discussed, and you're not aware of what the topic is, like what's the background, what's the context, then you cannot give context, and you cannot obviously annotate responsibly.
I mean, similar with Verifiles, we don't do breaking news, so we aren't in the same situation as the others when facing disinformation as it comes in. But I think it's important that it gets to be pointed out in reporting, especially if it's a repeat claim, because this administration has the tendency to repeat their false claims. Like, for example, the presidential spokesperson Harry Roque has said that the country was the first to declare a lockdown, and the office of the president has repeated this at least 3 times. So if it's something like that, if it's something that you can fact check as it comes in, I think it's important that it be pointed out. I'm also just reminded of the Reuters digital news report that was released this June, that says, well, it's a survey from 40 countries, including the Philippines, and more than half, 52% said that they prefer that the news media report the statements, statements containing disinformation, because it suggests people would rather make the decisions for themselves. So I think it's important that we still report it, but we put it in context, or when something is false, we follow up with a fact check report.
I think I have come to accept the fact that journalists right now are really living in a world where there's a vicious repression of dissident opinion. So we have to really bring a healthy, rational sense of skepticism in everything that we do and in everything that we cover. State-sponsored disinformation, for example, it's very dangerous because it has more political and economic power to reach the masses. So when we try to uncover the truth, we have to take the side of um, where the disenfranchised, for example, or those who have no access to power. The media, as I see it, has also a tendency to represent only a limited spectrum of the debate in a certain issue, especially when you're pressed for time or you're running after deadlines. But I think the responsibility of the media there is to prevent the marginalization and eliminating authentic and rational critical discussion. And in order for us to do that, we have to include as many voices as possible in our stories. Because government side or the voices of authorities is only one side to every story. So we really have to take note of that and and to always keep in mind the necessity of skepticism in our stories.